All right, it's my internet father, Ray. Ray's going to tell me what's up, and I'm going to have to listen just like I did with my father. Analyzing the cargo design brief parts 1 and 2. Let's listen to my internet father, Ray.
Hello, this is Danny Raymond, the voice behind Ray's Guide. A week ago, when CIG released Inside Star Citizen Design Brief Cargo Part 1, I decided to hold off my analysis until I saw Part 2. Which, unlike Server Meshing Summit Part 2, which we have yet to see, they did actually release the Part 2 this week. And I'm going to start by coining a new bit of Star Citizen fan jargon, the exploding toilet. Exploding toilets are a bit like sandworms, another bit of Star Citizen fan jargon to denote a flashy thing shown in a keynote speech that is nowhere near as real or ready as its appearance in the keynote would suggest. The term, of course, comes from the 2016 CitizenCon, but you can also say that the jump point to Pyro in 2019 was also a sandworm. Exploding toilets are when a video team visualizes a concept in a way that suggests the concept, but in no way represents what will actually be in the game, such as when they said you would need to manage your resource allocation on a ship or systems would fail. They showed an exploding toilet, while there is no intent, however, to create a simulated plumbing system on our ships. I go into all this background for one simple reason, to point out that virtually everything shown on the design brief videos that didn't say playable now was an exploding toilet. So, inferring anything about them is mistaken. In fact, implementing them exactly how was shown would be a very bad idea for reasons I will get into as we go on. The concept of the difference between instance and persistent hangars might seem difficult, but I was reminded of an example from a building that was very central to my first years after exiting architecture school, Los Angeles International Airport. At LAX, Terminals 7 and 8 are essentially owned by United Airlines. They were built specifically for them and have been maintained and upgraded and operated by them for more than 70 years. If one United Airlines employee leaves a piece of equipment out of position at a gate at Terminal 7, it stays out of position. On the other hand, Zip Air, yes, I hadn't heard of them either, operates one flight per day at LAX to and from Tokyo. There is no Zip Air terminal LAX. There isn't even a Zip Air gate or even a Zip Air ticket counter. A short while before the flight arrives at Bradley International Terminal, the gate and ticket counter are assigned, which may not be the one assigned yesterday or tomorrow, and shortly after departure, the gate and ticket counter is cleaned up for the next flight by the staff at Bradley International Terminal. If a Zip Air personnel leaves something out of place at the gate, it won't be there tomorrow because the Zip Air gate might be someplace else tomorrow. And even if it was the same, several other flights have gone through since then. And that's the difference. United Airlines Terminal 7, persistent hangars. Zip Air, instance hangar. Now, way back when the hangar demonstration module was first introduced to the game, there was an ongoing debate on the old forums, the predecessors of Spectrum, of how these would someday get implemented into the persistent universe. One group was the Magic Carousel, where miles and miles and miles of entire hangars were buried in the ground for no apparent need and then lifted as entire buildings up to the surface. This was
something that was, in fact, we did theory crafting on this in 2015. What Ray's talking about right now, we would talk about like how we wanted our hangars like in the persistent universe, that we wanted them like with apartment buildings. We discussed how we wanted our hangars part of our own bases, you know, like that we're actually in the persistent universe. And we talked a shit ton about it. And I think we all came to the conclusion that we're probably not going to get that for the foreseeable future. Even back in 2015, we were saying they're most likely going to be instanced. And it's an interesting conversation to be had.
Was derided as utter nonsense that nobody would build or operate such an expensive and complex thing if there was an available space to do it any other way.
Right, Hugh.
Which is true. Dude. The other group said the planets are huge, just spread them across the landscape and have some form of aerial or...
I was in the camp, and I was one of the very first to talk about this. Like, quite literally, we talked about everything. I think that the reason the games got so huge was... back in the day, we talked about everything that wasn't even thought of. Like we were talking about every portion of gameplay and game design. And it was such a fun time to be on this channel. Not as fun as now, actually. It's much more fun now and crazy. But we had wonderful talks. And most of us, I would say a good majority of all of us who had these talks, we wanted it in the persistent universe. Unfortunately, most of us thought they were going to be instants, and we thought just as you guys think. I'm reading all the comments, and it was like, well, this kind of crazy to think of like anything instanced in Star Citizen, you know?
Closed transitway that takes you from there to the terminal. Again, a system that many airports already use. This was derided as wonkavaders and said would be an eyesore, which is also true. Now, it seems like the NAPU team is taking the direction of the magic door, but at least so far are just letting what it represents as a physical...
And exactly as Ray is putting it, my internet father is correct. We did talk about the ridiculousness of how that would look to have all those hangars, Coob. We did. And he's right. We talked about how we wanted them buried underground so that they weren't visible. We talked about how we wanted them in the buildings themselves. It was like crazy talks. So Ray is literally spot on with this. Like, I love my internet father. He is bringing history to the forefront. He is legit talking about this in a very factual way. And I appreciate my internet father for doing this, because it really brings back that nostalgic vibe of talking about one of our favorite games and the directions that it could go. And now we're here and we're talking about it because we're seeing player hangers. We're talking about instanced first persistent again. And we did like a giant 360, if you will.
Reality be hand-wavium, which is good. Let it be. Lore team, if they come to you and ask you to write up some lore explaining the magic door system, just say no. Some things are best left as hand-wavium. You would just be digging yourself an ever deeper hole, both logically and physically. By trying to come up with an in-game rationalization of the regen system, you did not make it more sensible. You only made it more silly. I repeat, some things are best left as hand-wavium. The magic hanger is one of them. Now, there are a number of concerns with hangars and manual loading. One of them is, how do you manually load something like a Hercules or a Caterpillar at a place like SMO 18 or ARCorp 157 without being horribly vulnerable for far too long? You don't. On the other hand, a drug lab wouldn't make sense to have huge hangars. It doesn't. Right now, we essentially have 3 tiers of places. We have outposts, stations, and cities. My suggestion is that the outpost category be split, and that we have outposts, depots, stations, and cities. Most of the outposts that have large landing pads would be upgraded to depots with hangars. The remaining outposts would be capped at never wanting to sell or buy more than 96 SCU of anything to any one individual. They will be destinations for delivery and for cargo in ships like the Hull A, Base Freelancer, and Raft. When you buy there, one or more of the large containers near the station will unlock containing your stuff, and then when you sell, an empty large cargo container unlocks for you to unload into. You're still vulnerable, but only for a short time, and not so valuable as to attract too much attention.
Yeah, I understand how he's sorting this, and I understand why he's proposing this and the limitations. I don't necessarily know if I agree with him on this, but I get his logic and I see where he's coming from.
The depots, on the other hand, will sell up to 1,000 SCU to any individual and have instance hangars up to Hercules or Caterpillar size. There are no persistent hangars at depots. Now, honestly, though, the most exciting thing about the whole discussion about having hangars was the idea that a persistent hangar or hangars would be the centerpiece of your user-constructed bases. Great. Continuing, though, on the subject of hangars, there's a subject that I think CIG needs to get out in front of now rather than later, because if they wait to the actual implementation, it will cause a crapstorm. And that is what exactly have we been buying with our ships? Because CIJ has sold a lot of add-on ships, and every one of these ships has included, in what's included, a hangar. So a lot of people will look at their account and think, well, they own a lot of hangars. Now, someone pointed out to me an old 10 for the chairman segment where Chris Roberts said that there'd be one persistent hangar per game and account, and the others where hangar would just be landing rights at essentially an instance hangar. The problem is we have, over the course of many years, come to presume that being able to land at any place we visit is a presumed ability, and that not only that, but the descriptions of the hangar included with our game package is the same as the description that comes with the add-on ship. So here is what I'm going to suggest that CIG says. Each one of these hangars you bought with your initial game package or with an add-on ship could be a permanent hangar at a station or city, but no more than one per station or city, or they could instead be used as part of your personal base at no limit per location. We suspect that players will enjoy the idea of walking from hangar to hangar on their base and see their entire fleet in a physicalized but protected way. This keeps the hangars valuable.
Dude, I was just talking about how Cloud Imperium needs to focus on PR. We were talking about it on the Inside Star Citizen review. Now listening to my internet father, Ray, I feel like, Ray, can you please put an application in to be the PR for Cloud Imperium? Can I get an amen for my internet father being in the head of the PR department?
Yes! You're not gonna hate me!
That is such a great way of dealing with that, Ray. And like, really, the fact that, again, you're talking about content creators having some of the best ideas I've ever heard for this game, right? And here comes Ray with this angle on how to like really put it out there publicly, put a good face on it, and cover all the bases. And my internet father, Ray, he does that.
Yes! You're not gonna hate me!
Like this is what I'm talking about. I've been talking about this for a month and a half, man. Like, they have to get somebody in PR who knows how to be relatable to the gamer and give the news, the pulse of what's happening in Cloud Imperium out there with honesty, truthfully, to the gamer base. Been saying this for a month and a half. There's been so many trip ups and snafus lately. I feel like they need to get somebody like my internet father, Ray, hired on, and Ray just needs to get on this right now. Like, I feel like it would be much better. The face would be much better of it.
And encourages players to build their own headquarters bases when that feature becomes available, hopefully soon. Next up, the manual loading of cargo, which is already causing some grumbles. And I personally like the 3D Tetris game of being a loadmaster, but I also score in the 99th percentile in 3D spatial reasoning, although that only put me in the middle of class in architecture school. But people like what that comes to them easy and naturally. Funny thing, and I'm good at 3D visualization. But by definition, 99 out of 100 people aren't in the 99th percentile, and I'm too busy to be loadmaster to 99 other players. So we already have in 3.20 a good automated packing algorithm. So by all means, that must be preserved for the folks who don't find manually packing coming to them easy and naturally like I do. And there is a fairly easy way to do this.
Okay.
Cargo purchased for a ship in storage uses automated loading. Cargo purchased for a ship retrieved in hangar is manually loaded. When you choose the destination for your cargo purchase, it will tell you if it's stored or retrieved, and it'll let you change it to the other state. If they would rather keep the freight terminal in the hangar the focal point, then it's the same thing. Be able to direct the freight to the elevator or to the ship in storage. The ASOP terminal will, just like if there's a claim timer, show a loading timer. And again, just like there's an expedite button for the claim timer, there would be an expedite button for the load timer. Simple. The unexpedited load timer should be slower than a skilled manual loading, and an expedited load timer would be faster than a skilled manual loading. And yes, this should apply to the Hull C as well. Watching the crates pop in one by one is interesting for the first 3 or 5 times. I would rather shorten the runaround and just store the Hull C, buy the cargo, wait for the timer, expedite it if I wish, and then retrieve the Hull C, already loaded, to the docking port. Now, in order to make the manual loading of cargo work with the new variety of crate sizes, we need to have a couple features that we don't already have in 3.20. For all I know, they're already working on them, but if not, here they are. First, merge. If I'm transloading from a number of smaller ships, let's say Cutlasses, into a Hercules, I want to simplify a lot of the containers of the same contents into larger sizes for easier management. Second, as you might have guessed, split. The 32 SCU containers are convenient as long as you aren't trying to load into a small ship or one that is already mostly full. Now, if the container has something weird inside it, like a torpedo, then splitting, of course, isn't practical. But most of these situations are in fact going to be handled by the next two. In the video, they showed all sorts of odds and ends, ships, suits, vehicles, picos, whatever.
It's not in front of my internet father. You guys are being way too dirty in chat to be careful. My internet father's watching you. My internet father is literally watching you right now, you two. They're way past the honeymoon phase now. They have definitely fast forwarded into they're in the heat of it right now. They're in the heat of it.
Just stuck to the cargo grid, however. This, I sincerely, deeply hope, turns out to be an exploding toilet. Please, audience, you want this to be an exploding toilet. Taproot team, if you're watching this, do not try to program this. Treat this as an exploding toilet that you not only don't have to do, but shouldn't do. The reason, one word, is polygons. Stick 10 ships or vehicles on each spindle face, and everybody's graphics cards will be baking like an 81 ship battle, but all the time. So this is where the next two features come in. 3, palletize. This feature takes whatever ship, vehicle, etc., and replaces it with a rectangular base of the appropriate number of grid units and an arched cover with the right proportions, covered with a tarp and cargo netting texture. Hundreds, if not thousands of polys get replaced with maybe a dozen. Not only that, but it's much easier to see how the cargo can fit on the grid. And then, fourth, obviously there needs to be an unpalletized capability, which replaces the wrapped pallet with the original ship, vehicle, or whatever. Now, to wrap up with the thing that they wrapped up with, the subscriber item recovery lost and found. This is not too different from the solution I proposed a while back when the whole thing first hit the fan, except that I did not make it a diegetic function, because if there is no in-game reason why you own these things in the first place, which there isn't, then there's no need for a diegetic reason why you get them back, which means you won't.
I agree with that totally. You lose it, you lose it. I agree with him on that. I agree with him on that 110%. As to the loading system that he has proposed, Cloud Imperium is going to make sure that it's done correctly, because again, the backbone the backbone gamer are going to be the industrialists. The backbone of the gameplay in terms of the whole supply demand economy is reliant upon the industrial the backs of the industrials. In any good sandbox MMO game, always economic gameplay, any facet of it was always like the most important thing to keep the game running in terms of pricing. To get like the truest price based upon the demand of the gamers. That whole process that happens to get that price is the magic. That's the beauty. And to get the economy to that level, Quantum's going to have to be working. Tony Z needs to talk about this during CitizenCon, and we better see some information on what's going on with economic gameplay for sure. I think what's way overdue. I think now that we're seeing hangars, we're talking about loading cargo, we're getting into the hull being in the game. You're seeing a route being taken towards industrials. It is so important right now that we talk about the economic gameplay. So important.
Won't be limited by logic from putting controls on it. And absolutely you have to put controls on it, or everybody will soon have all the subscriber stuff for free from duplication, and so why pay for it? And paying for it is the reason why they have subscriber stuff. So, what limits? Well, any subscriber item possessed by anyone other than the original owner will be labeled somehow as unoriginal, such as secondhand or duplicate. They'll have inferior statistics to the generic item and would only sell for only a fraction of what the generic item would sell for. In addition, of course, those items do not get returned to Lost and Found. Finally, the Lost and Found has a timer which gets longer the more frequently the Lost and Found feature gets used in general, and not the specific item. So the incentive is to put off using it until there is something you have an urgency to recover. Now you can say those limits aren't logical in the game world, but there's no logic in the game world to why you have these items at all. So, now for some of our giveaways. First of all, the winner.
Oh, we are going to be having, what is he using? This wheel's way too fast, Internet Father. Internet Father, you've used a wheel from 1953. I understand. Listen, listen, this is just constructive criticism from your internet son. I know you don't want to look at me as a son. I get that. I totally understand. It's kind of like a reverse, Anakin Luke situation. But I'm going to give you this constructive criticism. This wheel is definitely from 1953. And we just need to update the wheel and the sound effects for the giveaway members. By the way, we are having a giveaway, shameless plug. We are having a giveaway here on DG360 for a $700 Scoundrel pack.
Get mounted. This message brought to you by Predator Mounts.
It's not Predator Mounts. It's not Predator Mounts. It's actually a dude we love who's a diamond member in our alumni named Eric Zarul. Thank you, Eric Zarul. If you want to become part of the fun on the giveaways, go down in the description if you're watching on YouTube and become an alumni member or a patron. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And you know what, Ray? Dude. You think every detail through, just like my father would have. Just literally like my father. It's like listening to my father. Sometimes I tuned out, but I always knew I had to listen, because if I didn't listen to Ray, I know a hand would come right through the screen and smack me on the back of the head. It's just like my dad. Like, you knew you had to listen to him. Sometimes you tuned out. Sometimes you literally tuned out, but you look like you were tuned in, right? Because that's your dad, right? But your dad goes on, and you're like, oh, right? And then he says something and you're like back in it again, right? But all the time that you're there, you look like you're in the whole time, because it's your internet father. Better pay attention to your internet father. I can't believe that you would ever not want to. He's your internet father.